All right, thanks for joining us and thanks for staying with us. It's Crossfire with Dakbo and Ishoma. But Ishoma is unavoidably absent on the show. She's on a short leave. She needs to bury her grandfather. So we wish her well wherever she is. And the entire family, a safe trip back and forth Dokwani in Delta State, if I call that very correctly. And so don't worry, from next week, Ishoma will be back on the show. I have two gentlemen who just joined me in the course of the show, and we definitely will be running the show together from top to bottom. And we will be discussing, having a very, very in-depth conversation, on some things that are trending. I think to a very large extent in 2016 and precisely June the 2nd, we have a bill thrown into the National Assembly, and that has to do with some activities bordering around non-governmental organizations in Nigeria. And so I'll be giving you a background of some of the things we will be discussing on the show. And we have these two gentlemen to help us really throw more light on some of the gray areas. Why this bill is presently being launched and is beginning to create a lot of controversies in the 8th Assembly. All right, I have, someone, that has been on our show before, and very erudite young man, and I love his analysis and his, the way it brings out information. And the show is about enlightening and educating Nigerians, and it's not just to come and just talk. All right, I have Mr. Sylvester. You will help me so that I will not, it's very, it's against my profession to actually wrongly call your name, like that. Okay, so we have Mr. Sylvester, and you will allow me to call you that name on this show today, so I wouldn't have to pronounce everything. Now, it's easier for me to introduce our second guest, and he's no other person. He's a legal practitioner. And for me, it's good to have someone like that on the show so that we can create a balance, in our conversation this morning. And it's no other person but Mr. Chris Okiri. Akiri. Good to have you on the show this morning.
It's my pleasure.
I know it's your first time on our platform.
Yes,
but,
yes.
It's Crossfire, but we just talk. We just talk. So let's just talk. Let's have a nice time and educate Nigerians and pass the right information out there. And that's what we will simply do. Now, non-governmental organizations, for me, I have been privileged to enjoy some benefits from some NGOs who, are set up to particularly listen and then measure up to really assisting the yearnings of people in society. They are put together to really do a lot of things vis-a-vis human rights, provision, microfinancing, environmental, developing communities, promoting education. Some are even set up for agricultural purposes. Some go into or focused into providing community health services, and it goes on and on and on and on. Now we have a situation at hand that we are looking at, and it bothers me a great deal when we come into a situation where government doesn't seem to look at a couple of concerns, as it borders around some certain entities before they move to, to actually try to stop their activities or stop them from functioning. Now, Non-Governmental Organization Regulatory Commission established bill in 2016 is one of the 1,716 bills currently pending in the 8th National Assembly. The bill was introduced in the House of Representatives on June the 2nd, 2016 by Umar Buba Jibril, a lawmaker from Kogi State, elected on the platform of the of the APC. This bill was first read on June the 2nd, 2016, with a second reading on July the 14th of the same year. It was thereafter referred, to the House Committee on CSOs and Development Partners. The proposed controversial law seeks to establish a federal agency responsible for the supervision, coordination, monitoring of non-governmental organizations and civil society organizations in Nigeria. Now, many Nigerians have criticized the bill. with many seeing it as a ploy to, to stifle civil society group and silence, critical voices in Nigeria. And I'm beginning to wonder, let's first of all talk about the benefits, the roles, the vital roles, that NGOs actually play in our society. And then we will now be able to, I really have a lot of questions to ask why someone is raising a bill, to actually stifle and kill the activities of NGOs in Nigeria. I think I'm going to, first of all, I haven't laid that foundation. I'm going to, first of all, like to take your thoughts on some of the stories that are trending. At the Federal Executive Council yesterday, the Minister of Finance addressed, in a close, in a briefing, to State House correspondents, and is saying Nigeria is pulling out of, about 90. Organizations that they belong to, even though we have about 310 of them. And basically the reason is that Nigeria has not been able to meet up with financial obligations towards these organizations. And I'm just wondering why we have so much organization that we have. I don't want to say treaties. I really don't know what kind of relationship that we have with them. But because we cannot meet up with our obligations or the memorandum of understanding we signed with these organizations, Nigeria want to pull out of about 90 of them. Well, what do you have to say to this?
Well, it's funny. It's funny. I thank you very much for the question. It's funny that out of the 300 international organizations that we belong to, we are pulling out of 90 of them, or by reason of the fact that we are not able to, meet our financial obligations to those people. Yet we have pulled out of recession. So we are told that we are no longer in recession.
Maybe technically.
Well, technically, but we are either there or we are not there. Now, we are told we are no longer in recession, and we are not able to meet our financial obligations to 90 international organizations, which is a big shame. Why were we there in the first place? Our being there was either beneficial to Nigeria or not beneficial. So if it was beneficial, and now we are now pulling out of 90 out of 300, now it means we are still in the doldrums. The economy is still in the doldrums. It will be futile, therefore, to say that we are out of recession. How can we pull? I mean, the whole world will be laughing at us that we are pulling out of. In other words, Nigeria, are we becoming bankrupt? Are we becoming a bankrupt nation or what? Now, they have to explain to us why Nigeria is pulling out of 90 international organizations. Yeah, and at the same time, yes. At the same time, trying to abolish, non-governmental organizations, because that's what it boils down to. When we begin to discuss, you will see why I say they are trying to abolish non-governmental organizations.
Okay, I see. But don't you think it will be very foolhardy of Nigeria as a country, going through a lot of things since we have the Buhari-led administration, yes. Saying that they inherited a government, that is dead, financially dead, and probably policy are not even in place to move forward. And they've been trying to revamp and re-energize the Nigerian economy. Will it not be foolhardy of us as a country not to probably re-examine our relationship, especially where we are spending or what we are spending money on, or nations that we probably are supporting in one way or the other? Well, don't you think it is wise of this government to actually consider pulling out of those organizations?
Yeah. Earlier on, I said, that was your name, right?
Yes, boss.
Now, earlier on, I said that we were either benefiting from those organizations or we were not. So if we're not benefiting from those organizations...
Why were we there in the first place?
Why were we there in the first place? So if we're benefiting from those organizations, why are we now pulling out? If the excuse is that we are not able to meet our financial obligations to those organizations, then it's a shame. It's a shame. Now, I don't want to hear, I'm sick and tired of hearing, we inherited, a beggarly nation, a beggarly state. They ought to know Before coming in, everybody campaigned fervidly to come in, to replace the existing government. You ought to know where you were coming into, what nature of purse. You know, how deep was the purse you were trying to inherit, or you did not know. If you did not know, then it's a big shame that you campaigned to come in the first place. You must come in to inherit all the assets and liabilities.
Because if all jobs
yes.
Are actually done and well done
yes.
by the past government,
why do you want to come? Why do you want to come in the first place?
Okay, let's take your thoughts on this on this particular issue, Mr. Silvers.
Well, thank you very much for having me on your.
You're welcome.
On your show again. Like Barrister said, for me, it goes to show that the problems we face with regards our economy is actually deeper than we have been told. Maybe there is even more than meets the eye. If we have reduced spending, civil servants cannot travel abroad for trainings, we have done so much to try to manage government spending, and all in an attempt to get us out of the economic situation we found ourselves. Granted that all of these have been successful, why did we join these international bodies, these world bodies at all? I am sure that the leaders of the country at the time, in their wisdom, must have identified benefits for Nigeria. It is not, you know, I'm trying not to say so much because I need to know which are these 90 bodies and which are the ones we are sticking with, because there are some we know that we should not be a part of, all right? So if the government can be transparent in its efforts at exiting or deregistering or you know, dismembering itself from these organizations, that will be fine. But if they will be transparent enough to let us know which are these 310 or so international organizations and which are the 90 that you want to now exit from, so that we can look at it and be sure that the decision that government is taking is a wise decision. Now, I don't know what financial obligations that could necessitate our decision to withdraw from these organizations. But like I said, it then goes to show that the problem is more serious than we have been told. That maybe indeed, like he has also said, Nigeria is actually broke. Now, talking about how that the current administration inherited a very terrible economic situation, I mean, a lot has been said on that. Recently, the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has started to actually correct them, that when they came into office in 1999, they met about 400,000 connected telephone lines. By the time they were leaving, I mean, the administration of Olusegun Obasanjo, by the time he was leaving in 2007, we had over 50 million active lines, subscribers. You know, so I mean, not necessarily 50 million subscribers, but 50 million active and connected lines. So what they're trying to say in effect is, when you come in, however the situation, your responsibility is to make life better for the citizens. Because during your campaign, that was what you told the people. So if 2 years down the line, we are still making reference to how bad things were, meanwhile today, people still travel, a lot of things, government is still spending. We see between 6 and almost 7 trillion naira going in for the yearly budget, and then we are talking about, you know, having to exit.
Yeah, but we have it in record, and it's in the public domain, that Nigeria, put together, is owing about $100 million to these 90 organizations. And I think that is forming the basis for, you know, wanting to pull out. So do you think, I mean, Nigeria will want to continue spending, maybe on a yearly basis, $100 million, you know, in support Because, I mean, that is the information.
This is the responsibility we have as a country. And I think that is where responsible leadership actually is required here, where you evaluate our engagements, our involvements, and look at the cost-benefit analysis. And again, as president or as governor, you are CEO. Now, you have to sit down. Good. That's why I'm looking at it, and I'm waiting. I'm waiting to see which are these 90 organizations. What are the benefits for us? You're not just going to say because we are simply indebted to them. We have 100 million naira debt to pay. What about if the benefits far outweigh what we're actually owing? Just that we have not been able to leverage on our involvement with these organizations, because I think that being a part of these bodies brings a lot of value, a lot of benefits to the country. But where we have not been able to harness these benefits, then we are the ones actually cheating ourselves. Okay. Imagine registering at a gym, all right? And then you expect that simply because you have registered at the gym and you have the registration card, that your body will just begin to align. You must come into the gym, lift the heavy weights, I mean, go through the drills, and then that your body begins to align.
Okay, let's say something from you.
No. We see the thing is that, like he's saying, you see, our belonging to this organization, these international organizations, was either by way of treaties or some international agreement. Correct. And the maxim in law is that you should respect international obligations. That's pacta sunt servanda. Pacta sunt servanda means you should respect treaties, your treaty obligations. You don't resile from any international treaty unilaterally, such as we are trying to do. Maybe, so whether the organization is profitable or not, you knew what the organization was doing before, and you know it was going to be beneficial to this nation. Hence, you entered into it. And if you went in by way of a treaty, you cannot resile from it anyhow. Okay. You know, the way they are trying to do, just because you don't have the money anymore. And to give the excuse of not having money is a big shame. How can you say you don't have any money to do? What will the international community be looking at? How will they be looking at Nigeria? You must respect international treaties. Maybe they've already agreed with all those bodies, those 90 people, that we are sorry, we are not going to...
I think something like that happened, because as part of the story that I read, the Minister of Finance actually said they are putting a plan in place to pay up.
Okay.
You know, that there's a plan in place to pay up.
Okay.
And the Executive Council actually set up a committee to look at, I mean, the exit plan.
Yes.
What do we do? Okay, do we want to continue, or you give us some time to rethink if we will come back? Okay. But whatsoever is our obligation towards you, we will meet it, but at this juncture, we will not continue.
Correct. Maybe there's that mutual agreement, yes.
You know? All right. I mean, coming to really talk about, you know, our focus for today. Like I said, a lot of us are benefited from the, you know, activities of, you know, of non-governmental organizations. Yes. I mean, these are civil societies set up to actually checkmate the activities of governments, be it national or international, you know, be it like in Nigeria, domicile in Nigeria, or they are actually NGOs that are internationally based, and all of that. Let's consider the characteristics of the non-governmental organizations. They are formed primarily voluntarily. Nobody is forcing you to be a part of it or to do it. I mean, they are independent of government. Yes. I mean, that is why it is non-governmental.
Correct.
Don't interfere. Don't come into our space. Give us an opportunity to be independent, you know, since we are non-governmental. Yes. We will do our thing, you know, based on our formulation laws and whatever we set out to do. Another thing is that they are not... you know, they're non-profiting. So we're not benefiting anything from you as a government if we have opportunities to be funded by organizations who believe in our cause. Then it's some other things. And then their principle is to improve the circumstances, and prospects of disadvantaged people.
Yes.
So let's start by really looking at why NGOs, considering their activities, why shouldn't be NGOs and why should there be NGOs? Is it because, are they set up because a country is having issues, or they just have to be because of the type of formulations and laws or what they set out to do?
Well,
okay, let's take it out first.
The thing is, NGOs are formed to look into areas where governments are ill-equipped to step into.
And I have a problem with that.
All right. Now, there are so many areas, in the mental area, in the physical area, in the spiritual area. These are the areas they look into. In the human rights area, and there are so many of them. You have the CLO in Nigeria, for example. You have Amnesty International, if you want to talk, look at it from the international angle of vision. You have Civil Rights Watch. You have Médecins Sans Frontières, that is Doctors Without Borders. These are all NGOs that look into areas where so many governments will fear to tread.
All right, so many governments will fear to tread. We'll quickly go on a short break. Just stay with us. We'll be bringing a lot of information across your way. We'll be right back after now. All right, we're back, and thanks for staying with us. It's still Crossfire, and this is Wazobia Max, channel 259 on DSTV, and our terrestrial platform is UHF 57. I have Chris and I have Sylvester in the studio, and we're just talking about the role of NGOs, non-governmental organization, in development of a nation. What can we just push aside, the effect of this organization? You were saying something before we went on that.
Yes. Now, I was saying that NGOs stand for so many things, in the spiritual realm, in the mental realm, and in the physical realm. They establish schools, attracting children, the waifs and strays of this community. Into the inner city children who are deprived, mortally deprived, make them to undergo nursery, primary, and even secondary education, gratis, free of charge. Those are things that governments are not able to do. In the area of health, they establish hospitals, clinics, all over the place. In the area of, politics, the Constitution guarantees fundamental human rights for you, for me. Where government disregards this, the NGOs come in immediately. That's where we talk of the CLO, for example. Yes. Internationally, we talk of Human Rights Watch and so on. There is this Amnesty International, where you are going from the sublime to the ridiculous. Then these NGOs will draw you back and then say, look at the laws, and so on. These are what these people, the National Assembly, doesn't want us to do anymore. Now, so this is a non-governmental organization is non-governmental organization. Non-governmental, that's why we would say. No government has any financial stake in them. They don't go to the federal government or any state government or local government to say, please give us money. I, as an individual, may say, okay, you are doing a good job, please take 1 million naira. You may say, okay, take 2 million naira. He may say, take 3 million naira. You gather this money from you gather the money nationally or internationally. And then for the government to say that you must reveal your source of income. I have said already they are not financially involved. They are not financial stakeholders in this thing at all. then the government will now say, you must reveal, as an NGO, you must reveal your source of income, and having revealed it, if you want to spend it, the approval, therefore, must come from Abuja. Now, having done all that, you must prepare a financial statement at the end of the year, which is subject to approval by Abuja, and so on. Then you are rendering NGOs ordre combat. Ordre combat is a French phrase which has now been fully incorporated into the English language, rendering them non-combative. They cannot work again.
They can't talk.
But in other words, you are trying to bring government into a non-governmental organization. Like I said elsewhere, you are trying to governmentalize non-governmental organizations, and that's disodious. Okay. And that's why I have said it is an obnoxious bill that should never become law.
All right. Now, Sylvester, let's look at it. Would you say, I mean, without, fair or favor, that NGOs actually unveils the irresponsibility and the insensitivity of government in nations, especially where they exist? And we are looking at Nigeria as a very classical example.
Clearly, that to me captures the situation. Okay. Because the proliferation, as it were, of NGOs in our society today is a testimony to the failure of government. Because in these communities where the NGOs have gone ahead to make life easy or easier for people are communities that have not felt the presence of government for decades. For instance, there are NGOs who have been working in Nigeria for over 40 years. Some have been in Nigeria for close to 5 decades, some 30, 20, and so on and so forth. I mean, I can begin to mention it. For instance, the SOS Children Villages has been in Nigeria for 44 years. Remember, after the Civil War, a lot of children were orphaned. They were roaming the streets. There was no plan in place for these children.
I had my primary school with the Salvation Army.
Correct.
Beautiful. So you see how they have all come in. And these are children who were taken. Many of them did not only have free education through their primary, secondary, some of them through their universities. And their university education were not all local. Many of them were actually sponsored to study abroad. And today they are success stories all around the world. These clinics that are being built, in some cases, the clinics that are built by government don't have drugs, no medications. The NGOs mobilize funds and they make drugs available in these clinics. Don't forget, these donor agencies, they used to work with government. They made funds available, and these funds were squandered. These funds were never used for the purposes for which they were made available for. And then the donor partners began to identify NGOs, began to build capacity of the NGOs. Today, even these NGOs are a strategic partner with a lot of sectors to building capacities for those sectors, including the police, including INEC, voter education issues. Most of the NGOs help INEC to deepen it. As a journalist, 80% of Nigerian journalists today, as we speak, the capacity building opportunities they have been provided by NGOs. And now you say you want to cripple that critical sector, that critical development partner in Nigeria? I think a right-thinking government, a society that means well, will identify the NGOs as strategic partners and support the NGOs by way of laws to allow them operate. I'm talking about laws. There are existing laws, rules, and regulations. We have the CAC. We have the Financial Reporting Council that mandates every NGO to submit audited accounts every year. And if for any reason you want to know source of funds, your audit report captures all of these. And if for any reason you feel that the CAC is not, does not have the requisite capabilities to carry out its functions, the Office of the Auditor General is there. You can provide some audit assistance to the CAC. You can provide additional manpower to the Financial Reporting Council, and they can continue to do what they are doing. And if there are any NGOs that you feel have run foul of the rules. The laws are there. But to now want to frustrate the efforts of the NGOs that have gone out of their way to make life easy for Nigerians is akin to throwing away the dirty water and the baby.
Okay, gentlemen, I have a question for you. Now, I mean, some of the information in the public domain that we need, to really address are such. Okay, first on the list is that NGOs don't always want to disclose their source of funding. And I wonder how an organization, even though non-governmental, will be receiving funds from another country or a body, somewhere in the world. And these monies come in, quite often to support their activities and what they're set out to do. Why wouldn't you want to disclose the source of your funding? If all activities that you carry out is legal and it's according to the laws of the land, why wouldn't an NGO want to disclose your source of funding?
Okay. Can I quickly
say
something?
Okay, if you want.
It's like telling the pastor of a church to give you the list of all his members that gave offerings on a Sunday morning service.
Oh, that is...
Because the churches and the mosque are categorized as NGOs in Nigeria.
Correct.
And I even heard that the lawmaker behind the bill came out with a statement that, the churches and the mosque are not involved, are not concerned. But there is nowhere in the bill that was stated. You refer to all as NGOs and related matters. And we understand what that means. Now to insist that NGOs must disclose their source of funding, most of these funds, for instance, the international funds don't come as cash. My brother, they come through bank transfers. So the CBN, they have their system in place to flag every funds that come in without proper explanation. In Nigeria today, every fund, every single dollar you receive, your bank requires you to tell them the reason, the source of the fund. And the bank, in turn, supplies that information to the National Financial Intelligence Unit. Working with the EFCC, they also have a way to look at what you're doing. So there are already systems in place to check your sources of funds. However, there are people who come in to donate, and they are, they are anonymous. I mean, they don't want to be mentioned.
Yes.
And so long the purpose that the NGO has used it for me, it's not as much as your source of funds. Okay. It is as much about what you're doing. It's about what you're doing. If it's about helping the society to become better.
We have had instances where, under the disguise of non-governmental organizations, we have bodies that have probably attempted in some way to disrupt, the activities of government of their hosting countries. How would you, monies come in, we have it, we say what we are doing is that we are providing health services in communities, that have been neglected by government. And you discover that the activities is not as said by the time because government would not just want to come up one day and just say some certain things. In the state in which we are right now, considering the state of the nation in Nigeria, and we have one of the stories trending is the fact that the DSS and the custom services have been invited because we have this influx of arms into the country. And you keep wondering that by the time you trace some of these things, what if NGOs are actually involved in one way or the other? Okay,
now that's a good question, Dakpo. It's a very good question in that if an NGO goes from the sublime to the ridiculous, nobody is a sacred cow. Nobody is above the law. So if they misbehave, contrary to the statutes creating them, because there is a statute creating them, when they get registered at the Corporate Affairs Commission, they sign onto things that this we must do, this we must not do. These are the functions we are going to perform, and you must not venture into this area. There are these these statutes, you know, a statute establishing each NGO. So if an NGO swerves from what it's registered to do into something criminal, because when you support criminal organizations, or you buy guns, or you do anything that you should never do, such a person is immediately brought to book. Such an organization is immediately brought to book. No person being a sacred cow.
Not even when there is no proper regulatory system checkmating the activities of these NGOs.
Do you know that the Corporate Affairs Commission, provides
they simply register. They simply register.
No, they don't simply register.
No.
They don't simply. There is an organization. There is a body monitoring the activities of this NGO worldwide, not only in Nigeria.
Small or big?
Small or big.
Okay.
Now, earlier on, you said, they are trying to stifle the voice of NGOs, which is very true. Because, you see, at registration, at the point of registration, we've been looking at the thing from the socio-economic point of view. But we have not looked at it from the legal point of view.
Okay.
You see, at the point of registration, every NGO acquires the status of perpetual succession, which means that even if any of the incorporators dies or becomes bankrupt, that organization continues. That's the idea of perpetual succession. They also acquire the status of corporate, if you like, legal personality. In other words, they are elevated to the level of a human being. They can sue and be sued. Those are the two types of things they acquire at registration. Now, how can you say that after registration and acquiring those levels, getting to those levels, after 24 months, you are going to deregister those things, and they must register again? That is like creating a human being, killing him at a point, and reanimating him after a period of 24 months. That's what it looks like.
Now, but considering the type of country we're on,
yes,
situations going on and a lot of things happening in Nigeria, don't you think there is room for diversification of interest without government agencies or bodies knowing exactly what this NGO is doing part-time?
Hold on, I just wanted to add to that. Don't forget, these NGOs, they have programs that are planned over time.
Yes.
Some are 5-year programs, 10 years. The development partner who is funding that program has said the next 5 years this is going to run. Sometimes they are educational, sometimes they are health-based, sometimes they are advocacy, sometimes agricultural. And then after 2 years, you are going to re-register or deregister, as it were.
Yes.
What happens to the program? And now you talk about, wanting to have an eye into what NGO is doing. I'm telling you, there are existing laws. The police is there. We also have the whistleblower policy in place today, where anybody can blow any whistle, can tell you in NGO ABC something is fishy there, and then the agencies will go in and unravel whatever is happening there. The laws are there. You don't need another commission.
Yes.
There is a 17-man commission, another council that will be made up of the first 100 NGOs to register. When we know that all the senators and rep members and ministers, each of them, the governors and their wives, they have the NGOs. So the first 100 NGOs that come from them form the council to regulate other NGOs. Don't forget that these same civil society organizations played a critical role in the entrenching of the democracy we have today. These same CSOs are playing critical roles, and the NGOs in our development journey. And I do not think that they have posed any threat at all.
Could it be true?
Anything.
Could it be true? Could it be true also that some NGOs have been used as pipelines to providing funds for agitators in Nigeria?
No, I mean,
we need to start bringing our thoughts together. Our time is really, well spent.
Yes, it can be true.
Okay.
If it is true, that would be admission of failure on the part of government.
Okay.
Because earlier on, I told you that if anybody should go from the sublime to the ridiculous, he will be brought to book. If you see that, I mean, an NGO has got its money from whatever source and use it in negative directions, you immediately call that NGO to order. Okay. By arraigning the operators, you know, before a court of law, and then you try them, you convict them if they are guilty, you convict them and sentence them. Because no person is a sacred cow, like I said earlier on. And for you to know that this government is actually out to kill NGOs in Nigeria, you look at Section 24, which I call the dog in the manger provision. It says no organization, no NGO should engage in agriculture, should engage in education, should engage in industry, should engage in health, and all those things that NGOs are engaged in. None of them, unless they obtain their certificates, renewable in 24 months. Or that certificate is
all right. That's well said. Let me take your last thought on the bill and what you think. I mean, we have just about 3 minutes left in the studio.
Okay.
You see, sections of this bill really trouble me a lot. Okay. Where, like you said, you know, they should not engage in healthcare, education,
agriculture,
industry.
All you are after is that you went to some donor agencies, to some perceived development partners who had abandoned you and started partnering with the NGOs, and you wanted to bring them to give you funds. They said, no, we're already working in your country. We are working with NGOs. Now you want to kill the NGOs so that the money can come to you. Start. We know of the MacArthur Foundation. I mean, I can say that here was funding the Nigeria police significantly. Okay. But these funds were not being used for the purposes for which they were meant. When they were coming on an assessment visit, they hurriedly put up some programs, you know, some community policing-based thing, and then when they came, they said, this is what we have done. They said, well done, but this was not what we gave you
what we gave you money for.
And that is why you see that they continue to partner with the NGOs, because they also have a system in place that serves as a check and balance on the NGOs. They will not give an NGO funds if they have not scrutinized the NGOs. The NGOs are made to sign up to some do's and don'ts. There are existing laws already.
Because we have to go. And the National Assembly states they cannot, they cannot be intimidated into abandoning the duty providing platform for Nigeria to agree or disagree or any proposed legislative measures, saying no one can gag non-government organizations in Nigeria. Speaker of the House of Representatives Yakubu Dogara said this on Tuesday in Abuja. In his remark at the resumption of plenary session after 7 weeks of break, Dogara reacted by saying, NGO bill, said transparency was what non-government organizations, NGOs, promoted, and therefore should welcome the opportunity to interrogate the issues with open hands. And for me, this appears like it's going to get a fair hearing in the plenary sessions of the National Assembly. Because we have to go now. Just your parting word.
Yeah, just parting word. You see, I like that. But you see, the Honorable Dogara and all other members of the National Assembly, Senate or House of Reps, they must know, they must be conscious of the fact forever that National Assembly is there to make laws for the good governance order of the Federation of Nigeria.
All right, thank you so very much, Mr. Chris Akiri. All right, we'll go now, but we'll be back tomorrow.
To enjoy more of these our Ogbonge videos when you just watch, press this button to subscribe on top of our YouTube page. You go love her.